It is my pleasure to introduce this morning's keynote speaker, Keith Reeves. I first heard Keith speak on my computer, actually. I remember it was on a day when I was feeling particularly overwhelmed by many things I needed to get done at school. So, like any good teacher, I thought of my to-do list and then proceeded to avoid my work and go on Facebook. I was scrolling through my news feed and saw that a friend had shared a video of a guy talking about teacher tenure. When I clicked on the YouTube link, I saw that in fact the video was a response to a comment Whoopi Goldberg made on The View about teacher tenure. And then I saw that this video had 80,000 views, and I thought, I need to watch this. And in those next few minutes, I really felt like Keith was speaking to me. He was politely educating the online audience about the teaching world and reminding us to refocus on what matters, our students. It was exactly what I needed to hear that day, and I unfortunately think it's what many people in this room need to hear today as well. It's hard to navigate the waters in our education world sometimes, and Keith brings amazing perspective to this issue. He is a voice for teachers and students, not only online through his wonderful YouTube videos, but on NPR, through his book, A Teacher Revolution in Defense of Children, in the classroom when he was a middle and high school band director in New York, as an administrator and educational technology coordinator at Yorktown High School in Arlington, Virginia, and as the director at large for the Virginia Society for Technology in Education. Keith is a self-described, unapologetic advocate for children and genuine pedagogy who supports a revolution to put authentic student learning first. We are in for a real treat today. Without further ado, Mr. Keith Reeves.
I began my teaching career a week before 9/11 in a poor rural school district in New York. I had student taught there for the semester prior and was hired immediately when my cooperating teacher retired. The only instrumental music teacher in the school district, I was Harold Hill. Young and stupid, idealistic and arrogant, I was ready to transform what I thought was a podunk, backward, totally substandard little program into a program of exceptional quality. Teaching the whole child, advocating fiercely for expansion of the program, and raising the standards of performance and musicianship in a way not seen since the heyday of those bands in the 1930s. My tenure there was short-lived. They didn't fire me, but as you're about to find out today, I'm a straight shooter. Exercising the non-renewal option in my probationary contract might sound better, but let's cut to the chase. I got canned. It wasn't because I didn't grow the program, like the first of the 5 administrators I worked for in 2 years asked me to. I certainly did. The program exploded and nearly tripled in size. It wasn't because I didn't raise the level of musicianship like I wanted to. I did, moving my high school ensemble to play level 2 stuff when I got there and tackling our first sincere level 5, albeit roughly within about 18 months. It wasn't because I didn't expand the influence of music education on our community. I created and instituted a music history program, added so many sections of general music for non-instrumentalists to gain exposure to the benefits of meaningful music education that I violated my own professional rights by teaching through lunch and my planning period every day. It wasn't because I didn't cultivate colleague relationships. I was elected vice president of my local Music Ed Association chapter, having grown up in Connecticut and knowing full well how robust the music education and music teacher communities were in New York. I had great central colleagues in Central New York. It wasn't because I didn't teach the whole child. I believe, as I believe now, in meaningful, valuable experiences that are relevant to each child, not to the general idea of children. And the fact that many of those students today continue to reach out to say that the band room there was their one solitary beacon of light in an otherwise oppressively dark educational environment tells me that that mattered. It wasn't because I didn't do those things. My relationship with that school was dysfunctional because I did those things. It wasn't because I wasn't a good teacher. I was good, not great. I can reflect on that. I wasn't a great teacher, but I was okay. Not nearly as good as many of you. I was young and idealistic, but I wasn't any good at playing politics or playing the game. We'll talk about the game a little bit here this morning. But I didn't lose my first job because I wasn't a good teacher. The straw that really broke the camel's back was a single piece of music that I prepared my kids exhaustively to perform. Tiny little rural school where I built 2 tubas out of the parts I salvaged from the 6 that didn't work. My newest horn, F horn, was built in 1949 in my local looked it up. I had a soprano saxophone, but no tenors. I had a metal folding chair. I feel like I had one chair for my entire ensemble. And I had those old Manhasset stands that do that thing we know that they do. I think that's what they're manufacturing to do. Tyrannical, short-sighted leaders. The mayor of the town was the head of the social studies department. One colleague drew and hung derisive pictures of me in the faculty lounge, tooting my own horn, which, honestly, I guess I'm pretty good at now that I'm standing up in front of you. It was to me a dark place where I built the county's first mini-lab out of spare computer parts. This was 2001, that ain't bad. Got an entire set of marching band uniforms donated from California, because we certainly had no money of our own, and then I committed a deep and cardinal sin. I taught my kids how to play a piece of music that my administration had never heard before. I'm going to perform it for you now. I'm going to perform an excerpt from the second movement of the piece of music that I taught my kids to play. Doing more? What's the piece? 4 minutes and 33 seconds by John Cage, inspired by the white-on-white paintings of Robert Rausch. I prepared my 7 through 12 ensemble to play this work. It took us all year to prepare it. If you're not familiar with the work, it's written in 3 movements, each of which is marked tacit. I taught it to 14 and 17-year-old farmers' kids. We studied it intensely, and I'm not kidding. We embarked upon the very journey that Cage conceived to understand sound and the role sound does and does not play, vis-a-vis rest and silence, in music, and to understand what music truly is, as part of deepening our preparations to tackle less and less traditional literature. My students ate it up. It was one of the most remarkable educational journeys I've ever taken with students, and I truly believe it did enhance their performance quality of literature from the usual catalogs. My students were willing and able to tackle the very idea of music and extended tendrils of questioning and investigation into countless other areas of their lives. That, of course, was the problem. I taught my students to think critically and independently in a place where critical independent thinking is practically criminalized. You may know such insular places. Maybe you've taught in places like that too, where conservative leaders who have never sung a note or plucked a string in their natural-born lives can sit on high in judgment and proclaim, as mine did, that's not music. When a school leadership, we don't say community, because it wasn't a community. When a school leadership, when policymakers don't understand or recognize the value of what you do, the deck is stacked against you, and I know that. The sad fact is that some people have no music in their hearts. Some people rise to so-called leadership positions in schools not because they love children, not because they are good teachers, not because they have something to offer you as professionals, not because they are good for the community, but because they are good at playing the game. They seek power, not promise. They desire control, not compassion. They prefer institutions over individuals. This story is not to elicit your sympathy. I was a stupid kid. I made some genuinely bad decisions there. It wasn't a good fit for a lot of reasons, and I did make some serious mistakes. Nowadays, I counsel my younger self to slow down and to have been more careful than how. But this isn't to tell a sad story. It's to tell a powerful one. Our story. Yours and mine. The ability to transform, enhance, and realize the human experience with and for children. You see, while I want you to know that I've been there, the target of an administration hell-bent on laying waste to arts programs, the victim of institutionalization that doesn't believe in the power and value of music education, they haven't beaten me. I admit I was low for a long time, but I got back up, and I did it because the brightness of electrified children lights even the gloomiest heart. There is a battle, but that tide of that war is turning, and I truly believe we are coming into a renaissance of humanity and the humanities in public education if we fan the flames for our side. We, as music educators, live pedagogically and professionally not at the intersection of art and science, but rather simultaneously occupy all aspects of the spectrum between the two. They are not mutually exclusive or diametrically opposed in our world. Personal expression, emotional evocation, drama, inspiration, powerful moments, deeply connected interpersonal experiences. These non-quantifiable, creative, and psycho-emotional experiences, these artistic and at times even religion-like experiences, are found in our classrooms in ways and with frequency rarely seen elsewhere in the public school. However, we also work with precision, with exacting measurements of time and space, turning sympathetic longitudinal waveforms into resonance patterns specific to the space, specific to the moment. We ensure the mechanical engineering of brass pistons operating within strict tolerances of micrometers, that the tension of spun and steel string is exact, and the physics of wood and metal and air generate not simply the proper frequency, but the proper amplitude and timbre, that posture, and breathing, and kinesiology, and muscle tension shape can transform the human instrument, and even tiny tots can really learn to sing. We study history and apply comprehensive analysis of society and trend to the interpretation of Western notational glyphs, yielding a fundamentally different acoustic reality for dotted 8th, 16th, and 1740, da, 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 when compared to 1940, da, da, da. It is oversimplified to say that we exist at the crossroads of art and science. We constantly and consistently span the whole of art and science. In my book on educational revolution, I spend a great deal of time talking about what teaching and learning really are. And no more so are my beliefs about teaching true as when discussing music education. Teaching music isn't art, yes. Teaching music is a science, yes. But these words are often conflated or co-opted by those seeking to justify our experience by relating us to practicality, as if we are riding on a sidecar duct taped to the hind quarter of the motorcycle of the economy, as if we're lampreys who sunk our teeth into the big fish of the core four. We are not ancillary. We never have been. In 2009, archaeologists discovered a carved bone flute made by hand 35,000 years ago. We have conclusive evidence from this and other similar finds that Neanderthals were playing bone flutes as part of everyday life. It is therefore entirely appropriate to say that human beings have always been musical. We have never been secondary, we music educators. We have been primary and central to the human experience since the beginning of the human experience. As part of celebration, of mourning, of expression, of representation, of ceremony. And while it is a misconception to call music a universal language, because music is not technically a language, music is also part of interpersonal communication. Art, yes. Science, yes. Between the two, no. Inclusive of the two, simultaneously and always. Music education is a craft. It is our craft. It is your craft. We know by virtue of our having answered our life's calling to teach music that music needs no justification. We need not call music a language when it isn't. It is music. We do not need to cite the reams of research that suggest music education enhances a person in more ways than we can count, which it does. And it may be directly responsible for increasing intelligence, emotional expressivity, brain size, general health, processing skills, motor skills, and creative problem solving. Yes, it's true. We can do all those things. But that's not why we're here. We do not exist so that others may exist. While it is true that teaching is the profession that creates all other professions, we do not teach to serve the system. We exist because we, music educators, are deeply inscribed upon the centermost pillar of the human heart and of the human mind. Our national obsession with standardized multiple choice testing is psychotic. It is bad for teaching, it is bad for learning, it is bad for children, it is bad for Connecticut, it is bad for America. But far more importantly and far more damning, psychologically and pedagogically, it hurts kids. As a national educational system, we have lost our collective mind. Our national and state and far, far too often local leaders drone on endlessly about the need to create productive members of society and to prepare children for the workplace. Firstly, the aim of education is not to create workers. That entire line of thinking is philosophically backward, historically uninformed, pedagogically unsound, and in my opinion, deeply anti-individual, anti-child, and inhumane. But moreover, if we believe that schools have a great role to play in preparing children for their future lives, shouldn't we be remotely interested in what those who toil in the most emergent sectors say is needed to succeed? You see, innovators and true leaders aren't clamoring for more factual recall, for better test-taking skills, for the ability to conform and comply. They're screaming for creativity, for innovation, for problem solving, for critical thinking, for psycho-emotional intelligence, for the intersection of art and science, and oh, where have we heard that before? If you Google things like jobs that didn't exist 10 years ago, or top-paying jobs this year, you're going to find piece after piece after piece of evidence that supports what business leaders, entrepreneurs, and community leaders have been shouting year after year. What we need from the young new professionals of America in 2015 is creativity. It's art. Innovation and invention are the new cornerstones of the information economy, so they tell us. And while my personal socio-political beliefs do not include job as the pinnacle of the human experience, because I am an artist and they can never, ever take that away from me, not out of my very bones. The arguments being made against us are frequently made by those people who believe we need to do more to prepare our young people for the future economy. Well, then keep the band! Expand the chorus, grow the orchestra, and make sure that every single child in every single school in Connecticut has meaningful access to quality music education, because we have mountains of research that shows that music and the arts is just about the best bang for the buck in town to ensure children grow up with whole brain health, access meaningful opportunities to create and express, and create relevant connections between the disparate other disciplines. Year after year, since the early 2000s, we have seen study after study tell us this, and yet the so-called data-driven policymakers don't heed that data. The undergraduate major most likely to be accepted into med school, music. If you want your kid to doctor, your kid should be in the band, or the chorus, or the orchestra. I'm a teacher, sorry, it's a habit. By the way, if your kid doesn't want to be a doctor, that shouldn't matter. Music educators have a unique capacity to address the individual student while simultaneously giving that student meaningful social and team-based opportunities. We hear budget concerns, but how many fundraisers have we done? How much money have we raised, the people in this room alone? How able to make up shortcomings have we had to be over the last 2 decades? And while it is no excuse for the inexcusable underfunding and in some cases defunding of our essential music education programs, we nevertheless have demonstrated a remarkable capacity for survival and adaptation that I can think of no other curriculum program matching. I count myself as an example of the wide-ranging positive effects of music education. My life was forever changed and potentially saved by music education. By the time I was 15 or so, I knew I wanted to be one of you, to become one of us, to create that positive change for others as it had been created for and within me. I was able to touch and change lives only because my life had been touched and changed. Don't take my word for it. In 2013, a former student of mine brought me a book. It contained notes from students and parents saying goodbye after I left that first tough teaching job over 10 years prior. I didn't know it existed. I never knew anyone who said a thing about me after I left. I may be good at tooting my own horn, but the truth of the matter is that, particularly when I was younger, I don't think very much of myself, and I never thought that I made a bit of difference during the brief time I was there. Here are a few comments. Very rarely do students like their teachers as much as we like you. They have gained confidence and performed beyond their years. These are farmers' kids. You're responsible for the rebirth of music in our community. May the enthusiasm you've created continue in your honor. You did not just teach your subject. You infused your students with a desire to become better thinkers. It's been awesome to have you here to try and counterattack the shallow-mindedness of the vast majority of the people in our school. My 2 favorites. I don't think any of us will ever be able to sit down and be quiet again. And my last. You gotta do something for me. When you're down and all like depressed, you got to take a second, breathe, and think of us and how much better of persons you've made us. And all the memories we take to the future. Nothing makes me happier. This is no testament to me. This is what we do. This is what you do. And if you haven't heard it lately, let me be the one to say it to you today. Nothing makes them happier. You matter. You change. You save. You transform lives. You are the center of some of your kids' While that includes a colossal responsibility to serve those kids, make no mistake about it, you are opening the universe for children every single day. And there is no better job. I know. I've done it. I miss my band room all the time. I miss my kids, and I do mean my kids, and we know what my kids really means. While I fervently oppose objectifying children and treating them like possessions or numbered objects more than individual human beings, I also know the compassion, affection, and protection that I felt to my kids. We develop unique and powerful psycho-emotional relationships with children as we provide the environment and the circumstances through which our student musicians can explore, understand, contextualize, and meaningfully impact their worlds and their lives. We do not justify our existence in the context of the other disciplines. Rather, the varied academic disciplines are contextualized within the sum total of the human experience, and the arts, especially music, manifest that experience holistically. Knowing all of the math, English, social studies, and science in the world is, I dare say, effectively useless if one does not know why those things matter. The so-called core disciplines teach some of the what, the arts teach the why. So true, so clear is the research, so strongly impacted music education that it can penetrate a substance of such density and hardness that it rivals anything on that of the periodic table, the thick skulls of Congress people. Just 1 month ago, on April 7th of 2015, as part of rewriting the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, a bipartisan agreement was struck to include music as a core subject in the new draft of our nation's primary education law, thanks in no small part to music education associations at the state level, just like us. I've taught general music, elementary music, middle school band, middle school chorus, high school band, musical theater, music history, music theory, vocal jazz, keyboarding, and man, whatever your acts, whatever your gig, whatever your group, you're doing it. You are the lifeblood of your school. And for some of your kids, you are the reason they get up in the morning. For some of your kids, you are the reason they go on living, and that is not an overestimation. There are kids out there that are desperate for one person to turn to, and you might be that person and not even know it. You are the reason. You are the inspiration. You are the music. You have love in your life. We can create microcosmic universes of safety and celebration, of meaning and art, of deep understanding, reaching the kids that others call intransigent or recalcitrant. I'm sure this has happened to a bunch of you. Oh, you have John in your class. He's such a lazy bum. And you go, he's my lead alto sax player. It's amazing. Did you know he's like 2 levels ahead of everybody else in his class? Oh, you have Samantha. She is such a prissy little snot. And you go, she's one of the most sensitive artists I know. Did you know she survived 2 weeks in the mountains with her family to get out of her country of origin? Oh, you have Charles. He's the most sullen, rude little boy. And you go, he laughs constantly in my class. And I think he's one of the most thoughtful children I've ever met. They, those colleagues, they look at you like you're crazy. Are we even talking about the same kid? No, not really. Because he's himself in my class. She's herself in my band. These kids are isolated and repressed, stymied and silenced in classes that don't care about relevance, that don't take the time to meet their individual needs. I, as an idealistic, long-haired, loudmouth, art-loving, child empowerment-obsessed, Whoopi Goldberg-fighting, blog-posting, book-writing, screaming lunatic, former theater kid, no one's surprised, fluffy freak of nature, have always wanted to throw the doors wide open. I wanted any kid, and every kid that wanted to make music to come in and do so, no experience required. I wanted comprehensive literature, challenging preconceptions, and a classroom of absolute love and safety, an oasis from hyperconservatism, and the socio-emotional and intellectual brutality I found in nearly every corner of that school. Play the electric bass? Join the band. Don't play an instrument at all? Join the band. Haven't played since the 6th grade? Join the band. On the football team? Join the band. Don't speak the language? Join the band. Nobody will stop you here. Nobody will limit you here. Name-calling, ostracizing, cliques, barriers, these are expunged at the door. Here we will not just say we refuse bigotry and hate and limitation, we will actively tackle them. We will talk out loud, frankly, about stereotypes and self-harm, about attitudes and perceptions. We will do art. We will listen to fluorescent light fixtures and debate if ballast hum constitutes music. Great conversation. We will perform 4 minutes and 33 seconds and not shy away from passionate, even shouting debates about it. In music rooms, we fail and fail and fail. And every time we practice more, we try something new, we try again. Business leaders in technology are desperate for people that know how to fruitfully fail, who want to disrupt, as they say so often in innovative startups. That's what we do. We experiment and improvise. We create and collaborate. We safely fail again and again in the pursuit of excellence and perfection that we learn to love as impossible to attain. We embrace nuance, we embrace difference, we embrace difference. Once you start seeing that differences are colors and not corrals, your world starts to change. Questions get asked that lead to more questions, and the status quo, the solid structures of state, start to look a lot like nonsense. That's what these community leaders and business people are telling us they want. Outside the box, innovation, paradigm shifts, understanding, international understanding, context, relevance, connection. Oh, I got it. You want positions. Unintentionally, in my first job, I created just the right vacuum of anti-authoritarianism, of which so many of those young people had been deprived, and they came in droves. That program burgeoned, more than doubling in size in a handful of months. I composed new music, arranging everything from science fiction film scores to Nintendo music. Had a kid play the game, projected on the screen, one band played the music. That was cool. We resurrected the musical, created unique ensembles, and were well on the way to reestablishing the long-dead marching band right about the time the administration had decided that it had had just about enough. I was threatening the structure of the traditional school, and by extension, the traditional community management. In their minds, by engendering critique in the hearts and minds of my kids. Question everything. What a recipe for becoming public enemy number one. It might have ended badly, but it doesn't mean that I did the wrong thing. I kept my band room doors open, constantly inviting people into my teaching space to see learning, to experience music education, to be immersed in, participate in, and even become part of our band. And the powerful experiences we know to be endemic to ensembles like ours speak volumes for themselves, far better than any words I've ever penned or preached. One of the key most ways we help ourselves is to be transparent and open about what we do and how we do it. Because the very phenomenon policymakers are seeking, engagement, technology integration, multimodal and especially kinesthetic learning opportunities, authentic assessment practices, cross-curricular connections, all of these things are naturally occurring in music education. Simply by opening the windows, we can show our natural leadership and our thriving, vibrant student-artist communities. We can advocate for each other and help answer the questions we're asked and ask significant questions in return. If administrators aren't showing natural interest, I encourage you to question them. Politely, professionally, properly, but ask, what can I show you? What are we working on as a school? What can we do? How can we help? As Noam Chomsky said, if you're willing to be puzzled, you can learn. I would posit that the opposite is also true. If you are unwilling to ask questions, you cannot learn. But if you are unwilling to be asked questions, to be questioned, you cannot teach. You certainly cannot lead teachers. I invite being challenged as an administrator. I realize I may not be in huge company that way. I have a quote commonly attributed to Doris Kearns Goodwin on my office wall since 2008 or so. Quote, good leadership requires you to surround yourself with people of diverse perspectives who can disagree with you without fear of retaliation. I believe all leaders must both question and be questioned to lead. I became an administrator in part because I believe this so fervently. One of my jobs involved teaching self-contained classroom music to what in Stafford County, Virginia was termed ID2, ID3 students, which stands for what they call intellectual disabilities, to the most significant degree. I loved these kids. Because of my passion for working with them, I did some professional development, teaching adaptive music technology to my colleagues around the county. The educational technology director saw my work and said, you really know how to reach teachers. You should think about going to grad school to be a professional developer. Before I knew it, my questioning if there was a better way for myself led me to help others question if there were better ways for them, which led me to question if there were better ways to lead. I question everything. I question everyone. I question myself all the time. I learned that in music education. Is there a better way? Is there another way? What's the history that led to this way? Why is this the way? Why not improvise? Why not experiment? Why not try something new? And the more I did this, the more fellow administrators I worked with, the more I remember my music teacher roots. Because brother, I tell you, there are a whole lot of leaders that don't get it. They're neither teaching nor leading. There are a whole lot of people sitting in big tall chairs that don't know squat about education, let alone music education. You see, I understand the exhaustion you feel sometimes. I felt it myself. I know what it's like to be under siege. I know what it's like to be on the budget chopping block, to be chopped, to be surplus. I know what it's like to sit in a room in which a grand total of 0% of what's being discussed applies to your classroom. I know what it's like to hear science, parroted from every administrator from Putnam to Fairfield. I am a crusader for every individual child, and my moral compass points directly away from adult interests and straight at kids and learning. I try, but I've not always been successful in effecting positive change even when I follow situations with great potential. Many schools are just too inflexible to change wholesale. And while I've dedicated my work nowadays to trying to break the inflexible institutionalism that infects the American public schools, some days it's darn hard to make a difference at all. You know where I did make a difference? Where you are. We need you. Your kids need you. I need you. As an educational revolutionary, my life's work is no longer dedicated to administration. It is dedicated to insurrection. I am helping to loudly lead the anti-standardized testing movement because you cannot bubble sheet kids into success. You cannot measure understanding through multiple choice tests and factual recall. You cannot evaluate creativity and innovation and critical thinking like colleges and businesses and the international community and parents tell us they want by drilling kids into the ground in the core 4 through traditional pedagogy and passing them along through an age-based promotion system that involves 30 kids sitting in nice neat rows facing the same way, moving from concrete box to concrete box at the sound of a bell with locked doors while an authority figure in front of the room disciplines kids and enforces repetitious tasks. That's a fusion of the industrial factory and the prison, and historically that is indeed what our scholastic institutions are based upon. I write about this in the book, which will come out this year. Feel free to follow me on Twitter. But all of that ceases at the doors to the music education classroom. When people come into our spaces, they leave those rigid rigor factories and they enter an environment that operates at a different set of physics. In the music education learning environment, children are at the center of the galaxy, not adults. Learning is our core DNA, not test-taking. Individualism and art are the essential elements of life, not control and obedience. Students are empowered to choose participation instead of being commanded into it. And young artists are given voices, not silenced. Your room is the last best hope for children. Your space is sacred ground. Your ensemble is a haven, a sanctuary. It is nothing less than the most important learning world in your school. In our world, kids sit on the floor or in arcs or stand in pods or move expressively. In our world, children use all of their modalities, visual and auditory and kinesthetic, and have huge autonomy within a motivating larger whole. In our world, we empower student leadership, encourage child individualism, promote new ways of expressing, foment risk-taking and self-challenge and innovation in creation. In our world, we raise our collective voices to accomplish great things. In our world, we foster discipline and passion, engender responsibility and freedom. In our world, we are not limited by traditional ideas of what is, but we are informed by a glorious past, the richest history of histories, that of the music of humanity back to the dawn of bone flutes. We are not content to go through the motions, but seek new literature, new performances, seek creation. We create, and we create creators who will in turn create themselves. You are here at CMEA, expanding your horizons, ready to tackle something new with old and new friends alike. And you will leave here this weekend and return to your schools, and your children's lives will be better for it. That's being a dedicated professional. That's being a great teacher. You're here. In short, my friends, we are not a problem in public education. We are not ancillary. We are not secondary, unimportant. We are the solution to public education. We are the cure to standardized testing. We are the answer to why should I go to school, to why does this matter. Music education is the very soul of teaching and learning. And every day you get up and in the morning to go to work, you are doing the work of real teaching. You are saving the lives of children that have nowhere else to go. And you are changing your world and theirs for the better. That isn't lip service, that is the fact. Pedagogically and historically, scientifically and artistically. And I am jealous as hell of you that you still get to do it every day, because you, my friends, are heroes. I love you for it, as do your children.